All right, let's talk about the soul potential. The Greek temple at Delphi, the Delphi temple of Apollo, the Oracle of Delphi, worked out of there. And the Greek temple for the initiates had above the temple of Know Thyself. And that's really what we're doing in here, is we're trying to get you to know yourself well enough to understand what you're here for, what your purpose is, and how you can use your intuition. Once again, I'm not making this a psychic development class so much as a fully human class. And psychicness is part of your full humanness. And some people may very well use it in their professions. Some people may turn around and do readings. Some people will probably become really great healers. Some people will probably use the energy and do something extraordinary with it in some other means, through writing, through art, through something else. The energy is still higher energy. It's still God consciousness energy. So know thyself, I think, is a very important concept. And what I find is very often we don't. So what I think we probably need to know, and once again, we're all old enough to be okay with this, your lessons, karmic lessons, they call them life lessons now in the regular culture. It's got a new term, but it's the same thing. And that's usually stuff you're born with, that you knew you were going to face. These would be soul agreements that you made before you were born. You probably know most of them by now. Let's see, soul agreements, karmic lessons. I always say that there's a creative purpose for most people to exist. There's something creative that you can do. And there's a healing purpose. There's something that you can heal, and the healing will give you wisdom, and the creativity will give you an expression of love in the world. So those two are still valid things. But part of know yourself is know what your karmic agreements are. If you know what they are, it's not so difficult. Once again, from the soul level, you say, oh, you mean I was born in that country with that really difficult situation? We were so poor for a reason. And the reason was I would learn to work with other people, and I would never judge anybody and treat everybody equally, whether they were rich or they were poor. There may be all kinds of different reasons you were born under certain conditions. With hard experiences, how many people feel that they've overcome most of their karmic hardships from this lifetime? Some. How about one or two? Because you probably took on a few. So I'd say there's at least one you probably have overcome. Probably everybody in this room has overcome at least one. There could be more than one. And some people, like I said, I'm getting postcards from some clients. It's like, see ya, I moved to Hawaii. I'm having a great life now. And that's what they're doing. And so if you know this stuff about yourself, and you know it, that it's going to go someplace, and I want to make it clear, this isn't staying this way. This is not static. The karmic lessons become wisdom because you learn something about yourself. Your soul agreements, once you've made them, they kind of get checked off, and you've lived them, and you really, from soul agreements, you end up with freedom. Creative purpose becomes an expression of love, and healing purpose becomes self-mastery and wisdom. My writing is terrible, but you get the basic idea. So I do think that what happened with the idea of karma or lessons or things we had to learn, we took it very hard and said, oh, my God, look at my stuff. I've got such a difficult experience. Because I remember being in some of these psychic groups in the 80s, and we'd be like, you'd never believe how hard my life is. And people were so proud of how rough they had it. And they really didn't have it rough, because they're all like Americans, driving cars, living in the middle class. Their life wasn't that hard. When I look back, I'm thinking, okay, we weren't poor. We were broke, but we were always broke. So it was one of those things where I really look at how hard we really had it. You weren't born in Africa in the middle of a famine, okay? So there's places you can be born that really stink, that are hard lessons, that are hard experiences. Our experiences are more emotionally difficult and spiritually difficult. In some cases, there is physical hardship. I do have a client who was born with, she had polio, and she now has post-polio syndrome, which I didn't even know what that was. And it is a hardship, and you know what she did? She became an athlete. And she's 75 years old, and she runs every day. And she weighs, I'll say 40 pounds less than me. And she is in fabulous shape. She can wear the sleekest stuff, not a bulge, not a piece of cellulite, any place on her body. And she's just in phenomenal shape. And so basically, by having the hardship she had, she certainly mastered that thing. I mean, I understand it was painful, and I understand that it was a difficult experience for her. But she still became, and she is very aware of keeping herself moving. And she has become so strong with that some of the doctors have said that they really can't tell that she had been as sick as she was in her life. She's overcome it. That's self-mastery. So that's something that sometimes if you have a problem and you overcome it, it actually becomes a talent or a gift that you're going to be working with. All right. Let's talk about the soul potential for a moment. And how many people were here Friday night? You guys remember Kevin talking about this? You know, that perfect day he was talking about? The perfect day, going through the perfect day. The soul potential. Let's start with my readings. I do readings. I've done it for 20 years. And what I usually find is early on, people would say, oh, that's so positive. You don't say anything negative. Well, I didn't pick up on anything negative. I don't spend my life trying to find horror stories. I figure, we can watch Lifetime movies for some of that stuff. But with karmic lessons and with life experiences that people go through, some of the readings people would say, well, you're talking about all this, So yeah, people come in sometimes and say, I want to talk about this issue. And sometimes we do have to deal with something difficult. And sometimes maybe there's a loved one who's dying or something difficult. I mean, people's lives are pretty much checkered with, good and easy and tough. And, life is a checkerboard. It's not all one or the other. Life is pretty much a checkerboard as far as I can tell. And it does look like there's good always mixed in with bad. There's always easy with hard. It's always a mix. It's actually very complicated and actually surprisingly interesting. But the potentials, I realized years ago that there was sort of a potential, and I call it sort of like a soul potential. And I've been looking for other words besides potential. But that's what this is that there is a potential that the soul has. And I know if I read a young person, like a teenager or, with the parents' permission, or maybe a young, early 20s person, they have a lot of potential. Because they have karma, they have lessons they're going to meet, but they've got tremendous potential because a lot of the choices haven't been made yet. They haven't actually gotten to the point of being in a free will situation to make certain choices, so it's wide open. So that's actually good to have some spiritual training, probably for people in young adulthood, about what their choices are and being responsible with their lives and what karma is, so that they can know how to work with this. But soul potential is really, I almost want to say, and it's going to sound goofy, but a perfect picture of your life. It's your life in a perfect state. And once again, we all came in with karma. We all came in with lessons. We all came in with trauma, painful experiences. We all came in with suffering. And so part of my philosophy is, what's the point of talking about all the horrible things that could happen to people when they really don't all have to happen, number one. Number two, I don't pick up on it anyway. Number three, you're really, really here. As a human race, we're moving forward where we're expected to be working with our potentials, our soul potential. Remember, I talked about the Aquarian age, the 21st century. This is the area of the we and the soul. The soul potentials, as they manifest themselves, are much more extraordinary than the ordinary experiences we've been living probably for the last, however many years we've been alive. The ordinariness of life, there's some goodness to that ordinariness. I mean, God knows, I love going to 7-Eleven and getting a Diet Coke. I mean, there are some ordinary things that are just fabulous. Okay, there are great ordinary things. But when it comes to our potential, there are ordinary things that we can stop living in. I mean, a lot of us spend a lot of time worrying about money, worrying about, certain issues with our lives. Once we overcome it, I really do think that it's like once we get into this idea, this sort of flow of the soul consciousness, we're really more inclined to be taken care of. And I don't mean spoiled. I mean taken care of. So if your desires to be filthy rich and to have gobs and gobs and gobs of money just for fun, probably we're still working on some issues with you. If you're here and you really want to be fulfilled and you want to find something that fulfills you and really, really opens your soul up to being genuinely fulfilled, which isn't really always about money. Matter of fact, I don't know if it ever is really about money. I do believe that that's what we're here to do. I also believe that there's a good chance that Spirit will support people and will support us better by when we get to the point where we do something that we really genuinely have a talent for. I believe all the whole point of all of us being here is for all of us to share everything we have with each other. Everybody has something to share, and I do feel the human being is extraordinary. And that's what I look at when I do a reading. Yes, we have to get through the problems with the mother. Yes, sometimes we have to talk about that kid that just won't get up off its butt. Yes, we have to talk about some normal human experiences. But beyond that, we are looking at the extraordinariness of the human being. And that's what I usually look at. And that's why I've always wondered, because people have said to me, how come you don't say anything bad, or this happened to me and you didn't see that car accident I was in? I don't look for the car accident. I never have, and I don't pick up on them. I just don't. Generally speaking, I just don't. What I usually have been focused on is this part of the human consciousness, the soul potential. And here we are as humans, and we're trying to work. Our human expectation is actually quite low. We just want to get through the day sometimes. And I know we've all had those days. You just want to get to the point where you can get to bed and still be alive. But what we're really looking at is the potential of the perfect self. And luckily, we're all in here are old enough where we've actually developed enough of our karma, developed enough of our work on ourselves, worked on our lessons, worked on our agreements, made peace. And I really do think forgiveness and peace, which, Oprah is big on forgiveness, And so here we have mass media everywhere saying, forgive, release, let go. And the more we do this stuff, and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying the more we do this, I think the more free we are to tap into this potential. And I do think it's very similar to what Kevin said. Once we tap into this potential, we really start opening it up everywhere. And the idea that extraordinary things happen all over the place, I think that they really can. I also think the more we rely on spirit to solve problems in our lives, because once again, I'll look at a problem that I have, say, with my family, somebody in my family, and I know that my personal stuff is, not again. You're going to do that again? Oh, great. We're going to do this again? Oh, great. So I know that that's my personal reaction to something. So I know that that reaction is going to get us absolutely nowhere. I mean, I know this. I'm not stupid. I know this. And so the only way I'm going to work on from this level with that situation is to solve the problem that I might have with the family by dealing with it on a soul level. Because my personality is pretty clueless and pretty stubborn and pretty willful and probably is not going to be turning loose things very easily. So the soul potential will say, the God consciousness will say, why don't we just give this problem to God? Or why don't we do a little meditation, a little prayer, and ask God for healing for the whole situation? Because you as a human, you just don't know enough how to do this. So you're going to have to have a little faith, and you're going to have to give it to God. Because God can do it, forget it. So I think that's what it's really coming down to is, I'll get to you. In the free will, you have to actually give something over to a higher consciousness. And once again, I think higher consciousness will solve our human issues, whether it's money, whether it's health, whether it's family relationship, whether it's the cat peeing in the dining room, whatever it is, that somehow spirit will work with it. And I think our intention should be, okay, God, work on this with me. I will cooperate when you give me information or I will use my intuition and I will pray and I will tune in and I will do what you say. If you give me, I will follow your guidance. And this way we will solve the problem. But I think what we have to want to solve the problem first. And I think a lot of people just like fighting. So I think if we just say, you know what, I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to have a problem anymore. God, let's go with this. And once again, this is not I don't mean to be like a minister or sort of a preacher about this, but I do think you do need some idea of a relationship with God, because I think God can solve the human stuff and make it easier for us to do the divine stuff. And I think that when we see the human stuff being worked on, it's like, wow, I'm not broke anymore. Oh, okay. Wow, that bill made it. You ever do that where you say, okay, God, I'll put it in your hands, and then all of a sudden the money comes in and you do pay the bill? Well, I think that more of that can happen if we just put more of it in spirit hands. We have to be smart, and we can't just say, oh, I'm never going to work again. Because there's certain right attitudes, just like Kevin was talking about, right labor, right thinking. All that really, really helps. But I think what we'd like to do now in the 21st century is tap into the soul potential. And that's what I see. That's what I look at in people, as I see the soul potential. I don't know why you couldn't be a writer. I don't know why you couldn't actually lose that 30 pounds. I don't know why. And once again, my human side will go, 30 pounds, are you kidding? I mean, I know the human side. And I know the humans, we always do the human dance, and the human dance doesn't really solve the problems. So the spirit dance will probably solve the human problems. Then we can tap into the potentials. Because when I'm looking at people, I see writers, I see dancers, I see people who are at their perfect weight, I see people at their great health. I see the perfect people. They may not feel perfect. They may have creaky bones when they get up. They may be sore from sitting there for an hour and a half. They have humanness there. But the fact is, the potential is there. And it's always there. And this is what I think my job has been for 20 years. I think my job has been to tell them that the potential is there. I think all you need to know is that you could. It's almost like if you had a parent when you were young. You know those people with really, really encouraging parents, mom and dad, somebody said, you know, kid, you are really talented. You know, kid, you are really smart. You know, kid, you're going to really make it. I think sometimes a little bit of encouragement about what is perfect about who you are actually makes you tap into it. And that's what I think the readings are. I don't think that they're, I think they're really about the potential of your personal perfectness, what you can do. And people will say, well, you said I could be a writer, but I didn't get around to it. Well, you get a right to be a writer. If you're going to lose the 30 pounds, you're going to have to get up off the couch and do a little walk away the pounds. You have to do something. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have responsibility, but I'm saying the potential is there. And I think the more you're aware of the potential and what you could actually become and how really cool your life could become and how amazing it could become, I suspect that would be fulfilling for you because you'd be using your own talents and sharing your talents, your skills, your wisdom with other human beings, and that would be fulfilling for you. I don't think it necessarily makes us all millionaires. I don't think we'll all end up on TV. I'm not even sure that's a good idea because of what happened to everybody who seems to get into TV. But I think the potential that we're working from is that I think if we can leave here today and you can see a teeny bit of your soul potential of what you can really tap into and work with in this life, I think it'll impress you. And once again, I am more impressed with the client's talents. And that people say, why do you tap into past lives? Or why do you look at this? I like looking at this stuff because this is what I've been looking at for 20 years. It's taken me 20 years to identify it. But that's really what I'm looking at. I'm not looking to tell you about the car accident or your stupid uncle who's won't quit smoking and is cheating on his wife. We can talk about that for a few minutes and about the lessons and how it's affecting your life and what you can do about it, if there's anything you can do at all about it. But we can talk about your potential. And in the utopian view, or at least the higher world view in the Aquarian age, everybody's here to tap into their life purpose. Everybody's here to use your skills and your talents and your gifts and to share them with other humans, whether that's dancing, whether that's singing, whether that's, it's not all singing, dancing, and acting, it's lots of other things. It could be childcare. There are people who are amazing teachers, like the teacher that works with my son. She's good, and she is where she should be, at least for now. I don't want her to move. So there are people who are really, really talented. So what I'm saying is I want to see where you guys can find with your talent. I know you had a question. Go ahead and ask it.
Values that we're seeing. I mean, people are increasingly disenfranchised. I'll just contrast this. 1969, the flower power, that peace movement, the thought that people collectively were. That seemed like the Aquarian age. That seemed like, this notion of brotherhood and love. And at this point in time, there are increasing disenfranchisement, a collapse of leadership. And I guess I would just ask. We're here at ARE. It seems like these people, my colleagues here on Path, to both know themselves and to contribute. But can you speak a little bit about the values of the Aquarian age and how we're moving, how our spiritual path contributes to the manifestation of those values, and when do you see that coming to more fruition?
You're really smart, aren't you? I mean, you got a high IQ, don't you? See, I'm not that smart. That's the problem. Okay, let's start with disenfranchisement. I think people are increasingly isolated, and that's why they have to start tapping into each other and God again, because they are alone. And you have to find your own soul groups again. You have to start finding your like souls. So who are you alike? You might be creative, you might be spiritual, you might be a person that laid great mosaics in a past life. Whatever it is, that you've got to find your soul group. I would say most people in here are interested in something spiritual. Would that be correct? I mean, everybody's here half of you people work here. I know you, so I know you're into something spiritual. So I would say you got to find your own soul groups. Some people do find them in the churches. Some people, and that's one great place to find soul groups. As far as the disenfranchisement, I think we have become isolated, but I also think we had to break away from the old patterns, which was we live with our mother's mother, our aunts, and our husband's mother and their aunts, and all 70 of us live together. I think that was a little stressful too. So I think that now we ended up sort of on our own, and like I know, because I have a 4-year-old, no relatives around to help. You know, there is none of that type of thing. So we have to make new soul groups and new connections. And in our case, we got some great relatives that are not genetically connected to us. We have a new grandma for my son who's been his spiritual grandma for years, and she's really been his grandmother because my mother was really kind of older and not well enough to be the grandma and lived in Massachusetts. And Kevin's grandmom is in Colorado, and we're the last grandchild to be born because we waited so long that they kind of said, well, now you people do this. And now they already had a bunch of other grandkids. So what happened is we created new relationships. And that's what I think you want to do with the creativity, not just being creative with, sewing or painting. You want to be creative with your relationships and go places. And, honestly, I would say do things that you haven't had a chance to do that you've always wanted to do. If you want to learn kayaking, I'd say go for it. I have a friend who moved to San Francisco, and she was very lonely, and she was very isolated, and she was very depressed, and she was almost thinking it was a mistake. And she was on Cape Cod where I had been, and she was really kicking herself for a while until she got her butt out of her apartment and started looking around, and then she did the smartest thing she's ever done in her life. She always wanted to learn scuba diving. My friend is 6 feet tall, and she was about over 200 pounds at the time. And so what happened when she learned scuba diving? This is an example of transforming your life into that potential that you have. She made a bunch of friends. They started going on crazy trips like to Fiji and faraway island places where there's apparently really great diving. And then she became very aware of her fitness because she had to pass the tests for scuba diving. There's more and more levels you can get to, and you have to be more fit to do the levels. She passed the basics, but then she wanted to go further. So she started losing weight. I think she told me last year she lost 50 pounds. And she's done really, really well. So basically, this person has transformed her life. She's got friends who threw her a big birthday party that she only knew for like a year. And these people were throwing her the biggest party probably of her life. I mean, I'm not sure we ever threw her a party that good. And so I think so when it comes to this thing, I think you have to really reach out to new things. There are some old things you did that you can certainly tap into again. If you always like to go to the meditation or the Glad Helpers prayer group, or if you always did certain things, you can go back and do them again. But there's also, I'd say, be open to new things. The rest of the question about what was it about the rest of the world and how it's all falling apart? In a nutshell.
Yes.
Okay. It's not falling apart. The old society is coming down. The Piscean structures are coming down. It does look a mess. When old structures come down, you ever see a building implode and the big dust? It's a mess when it comes down, and all you have to do is move the whole thing out of the way. So the Piscean structures are coming down. And really, for all of the people who would be in this room, that's a good thing because you've probably been a few lifetimes in monasteries or in healing sanctuaries or stuff like that. Now you get to go out there and work it. They used to keep these people isolated from other people. Now you can be in the middle of society, have a life, have a talent, and people go, wow, my back feels better because I saw you. That really helps. So now you're part of society. You're not in a sanctuary. You're not in a temple. You're not in a convent. Now you're part of society and you're participating. And that's the way we want it. We want it mixed in. We don't want people set off in monasteries because, come on, they never come out. Those guys made wine. Do you think they ever wanted to leave? No. So Go ahead.
Let's see if I can bring this together. What you were just talking about rang a bell with me, but the question that she asked back there was, I couldn't repeat it, but it was, but it.
I was going to say, if you don't, please don't.
It struck something also because it's you're worried about the world, you're worried about values. You look at the media, it strikes something with you, and basically all you can work with is you. And at that time, in working with you and going forward, blooming, trying new things, there's also that part of you, and it may be the ego driving you, that remembers that you grew up with your mother and your grandmother and all those other tribal things that you kind of want to repeat because maybe there were some good values in it. For me, it was a relationship with my grandmother. And so here I am, as old as she is, and I want to have that relationship with my grandchildren. But it's not going to happen in this lifetime, not with the other personalities that are involved, and realizing that I don't have to limit myself to only wanting that, and hearing Mary talk about, well, what else do you want to do? And getting in touch with that soul potential
So the
to
gift
find
your
out
grandmother
what's
gave
next.
you, the gift your grandmother gave you guys were buddies, right?
Yes,
And
spiritual.
So what was this? It's a love relationship.
Yes.
And it probably moved up into unconditional. What you want to do is find a way of sharing that love with other children
Yes.
in the world so that they have that experience.
Yes. But I was
But you don't have to be a
myself
genetic relative.
Yes.
But you have the genetic relative to teach you about love so you could become the grandmother for other people.
Yes, but I was limiting myself and saying that I wanted to have that with my grandchildren. And
that
it wasn't.
Little irritation, like a pearl, that little irritation is going to drive you forward. And what I would do is I would also pray that there be some, you apparently have an in-law issue, right?
Daughter-in-law.
Yeah, okay. I know. We are, I know, these family things are wicked. These are wicked. I mean, we're perfect.
Ex-daughter-in-law.
Okay, I know. The family thing, what you want to do is pray. First of all, I would recommend talking to the soul of your daughter-in-law and calm yourself down because you got to get past all your stuff, right? And then you want to get yourself centered and say, okay, I love this person. And you can't want what you want, but you can talk to the soul and say, I want the best for these children. Therefore, I would like to heal this relationship. And it may mean you don't always, you guys probably won't always agree. Personality-wise, unconditional love is a real, you know what I mean? It's a real rough one. Unconditional love is hard. So what you have to do is learn to love this person, and I would try to find 3 things that you like about her. Maybe she keeps a real clean house. Okay, maybe that's not one of them. But whatever it is. Whatever it is.
No, exactly what you're saying.
Try to find 3 things about her
Yes.
that you can say are really great qualities in a human being.
And reminding myself.
And remind yourself.
of
But
that.
also, I would pray for healing in the relationship so that it becomes easier to be around the relationship. And then pray for healing so that she doesn't see you as an enemy.
Yes.
Because she's seeing you as an enemy, and apparently you might be a threat. And so what you want to do is, if you're powerful, they always take people who are powerful and they see them as threats.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. One more question. We got one more exercise, guys, and we're running out of time.
When you were talking about the rest of the world, stuff is happening.
Yeah, that's too complicated.
I just got why I'm Persian and where I was born in that part of the world and where I am now and the work I do now and how people could relate to me. It's like she's one of them. But
It's very important that we don't see any one group in the world as an enemy or see ourselves as that much better than everybody else. That is so arrogantly American. So, and my brother-in-law is Persian. So that's why we started mixing cultures and moving around and having exoduses from one country to the other, and the Irish work at Cape Cod and the Canadians come down, and everybody started coming in. Now we've got other countries so that we meet people who are from other cultures and go, hey, she's cool.
And that's why it's like I can't believe I'm living in the Bible Belt. I mean, I live in
None of us can believe it, actually. So.
I live in Virginia Beach, and the first thing that happened with the 9/11, people asked me if I was okay and nobody was harming me. I said, no, no, no. Why would people do anything with me? Because first of all, I wasn't Arab, but it's just that I think it's just a sample. People get a sample of what people are from other
Right,
parts
we're
of the
supposed
world.
to meet other people. We're all the same. It's just these different cultural things and labels we put on ourselves. Just like I'm wearing what do you call Coldwater Creek. It's the same thing. Persian, Irish, Coldwater Creek. Who cares? It's all the same thing. It's just something you wear for a minute. That's all. It's just like go to Dress Barn. Okay, now I'm wearing Dress Barn. You know, I'm just saying it's the same. It's the same thing you put on yourself, and probably because you had a connection with the past life culture. Let's do the last exercise, and then we'll try to take questions if there's time. The last exercise is going to be a writing exercise. I do hope you have some paper left. If you don't have any paper, we have index cards left. You need an index card? There you go. Pass them back and around. Down. Take a couple of these. There you go. Huh?
I got paper.
If you have paper, I'm just giving this to people who don't have paper left, because you guys have been writing a lot. There you go. Anybody not have paper? Here we go. Pass that down, please, to the lady on it. Here. Why don't you start passing the rest of them out there? Thanks. I'm just giving the index cards in case you ran out of paper, because you guys have been writing a lot. All right, same deal. Gonna go up the steps. I'm gonna do the same exercise because you've got to get used to doing it. It's that simple. So, you want to do a longer thing, we'll do a longer thing, we'll add more exercises. Right now, just going up the steps, tapping into your higher consciousness, it's simple, it's clean, it works. Yep. But I'm going to tell you about it in a minute. I call this the North Star exercise. The North Star exercise is one where in astrology, I studied astrology. I worked on it for years, loved it. I wasn't really diligent enough to really become an astrologer. It was just easier to do readings. So I just did my own kind of readings, and I never finished studying astrology, but I did enjoy it. And one of the ideas in astrology is the North Node. The North Node is a node in every human being's astrological chart that tells you what you're heading for in this life, what your talents are, what your potentials are. The South Node is where you came from. It's what you did, what you were involved with, things you did in other lifetimes. Usually the opposite is where you're heading. So my South Node is in Pisces, which is spiritual and la 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 stuff, and then artistic, creative, and then North Node is Virgo, which means get your butt out there and put your money where your mouth is and get your health together and start exercising and quit eating the candy bars and that kind of thing. So Virgo's got a lot of work for me to do. Your North Node or your North Star, I think, is your life purpose. And at this point, because we don't have 20-year teenagers in here, at this point, I suspect your life purpose, actually what I should do is really change that to life mission. Life purpose is really what you work on when you're younger in life because it includes your lessons. So I really should change this to life mission. Life mission is what you're going to share with others. Mission means others. It's what you're going to do with others. Life purpose is, I got to overcome that problem with that codependency. And purpose will give you the wisdom. Mission is, what can I share with others? What can I do? What am I here on earth to share with others? What is my life mission? And how can I use it to co-create my future? Simple question. So we're going to do two types of visions with this. One of them is going to be traditional, where you go up the steps. I'll take you up the steps. You're going to go up the steps, and you're going to be on the 7th level, which is the Akashic Record, and you're going to meet your perfect self. Don't get caught up in faces, okay? Details of faces, it'll drive you nuts. Just if there's a being there and it's a little bit white, if you just hear a voice and you don't see anybody, that's fine too. All right, let's not get caught up in faces, because once again, those of us who are obsessive compulsive go step 1, step 2, let's see your face. What kind of nose do you have? We all want to check everything out. Well, that's not my nose. Is that your nose? And so you start to get all freaked out about this stuff. It's the perfect self, and just know it's the perfect self. It is your soul consciousness. It may not have much of an identity at all. It may not give you an identity to work with. Okay, so because they don't want you to get caught up in all that identity stuff. Okay. And you're going to talk with that. And while you're in there, I'm going to give you about 6 minutes. I'm going to have you start to write what this being says to you. If you don't want to write, I say you don't have to write. But this is somewhat inspirational, and I do think that since people seem to get a lot of information in the first exercise that was unfinished, I think that maybe we'll give you a little bit more time to stay in this time so you can start writing. Okay? If you want to take notes, fine. If you feel that the writing is going to get in your way, then I say don't write. Once again, your consciousness, your exercise. You do what you want with it. Okay? So it's your world. Some people will want to write afterwards, and if somebody is writing very intensely, leave them alone. Let them sit there and finish writing. Okay. So let's do this exercise. Take a deep breath. Deep breath. Let's blow out all that tension from sitting here for hours. Our intention is to talk to your soul consciousness, your perfect self, the divine spark, and find out more about your life mission and how you can use it to co-create your future. Take another very deep breath and blow it out. You may write at any time in this exercise if you feel the need to write. If you don't want to write, you don't have to. You'll see before you a staircase, same one you've been going up for 2 days. You're going to ascend the staircase 1 step at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're moving into higher consciousness now. 5, 6, 7. You're on the platform of higher consciousness. This is the soul level. This is the Akashic record. There are no doors here. There's a corridor, and at the end of the corridor is standing a being. You may see, sense, feel, or know this being because it's you. You will approach each other. And your intention is going to be to ask this perfect self about how you can use your life mission, what it is, and how you can use it to co-create your life, your future life. You two may start a conversation now, and we'll give you some time in silence to commune with your higher self. Thank them, and then come on down. Let's look at down the corridor. Start walking down the corridor. You're at the top of the stairs. We're going to bring you back down into normal consciousness. 7, 6, 5, 4. Coming back down. 3, 2, 1. It's 11:56. 11/11/08. 07. Sorry, 07. Put you into next year. If you want to take notes, you can. Some of you may remember it, but it does tend to be a little bit like a dream, and it goes away fast. Sometimes there's bits and pieces you remember, and some of it will stay with you forever. Some of it may start to fleet away, so you can write it down. That was about 7 minutes. Was that long enough? Did you get something? 7 minutes in silence is usually good amount to get something without necessarily going so altered. The problem is if you stayed really a long time, you get so altered, I don't think you could drive home because you're way out. You guys were gone. Okay. If you didn't get anything, then I would suggest you try the exercise again in a peaceful setting. I would recommend you give it some time. This one I would give time. This one I give more time, but don't drive a car afterwards. Don't have, stuff that you have to do that's really technical afterwards. Try to just leave it so it's a relaxed end of the day for you. That would be a good idea. Or do it before you take a nap or something. That wouldn't be a bad idea. All right, let's read the Casey stuff here. It's good to take notes, write down anything you did get. I just want to read a little bit of reading to conclude with Casey's reading here. The reading is number 5749-14. The person says, they're asking Casey a lot of questions about Jesus. Question. The ninth problem concerns the proper symbols or similes for the Master, the Christ. Should Jesus be described as the soul who first went through the cycle of earthly lives to attain perfection, including perfection in the planetary lives also? Answer from Casey. He should be. This is the man, see? So he was saying he was the first one to attain to perfection. 19. Should this be described as a voluntary mission, one who was already perfected and returned to God, having accomplished his oneness in other planes and systems? Answer, correct. Question, should the Christ consciousness be described as the awareness within each soul, imprinted in pattern on the mind, and waiting to be awakened by the will of the soul's oneness with God? And Casey's answer is correct. That's the idea exactly. Obviously, Casey did the reading prior to this, and they were just basically reading it back to him. But the most important part is, should the Christ consciousness be described as the awareness within each soul, imprinted in pattern on the mind, and waiting to be awakened by the will of the soul's oneness with God? And they talked about Jesus being the person who was the first one to attain perfection. You don't have to attain perfection, and you don't have to go through everything he went through. But what we're talking about is you want to get more of that divinity of your own higher soul consciousness mainstreamed and brought into your conscious living life. That's what you want to do. So if you want to do these exercises again, feel free. I wouldn't do them every day. I want you to meditate on it. Take them very seriously if you do them. Don't do this lightly. Do it with the intention that you really need to get some information. If you just do it as a game, it'll become a game and you won't get anything. If you do it with the very serious intention that you really need to know about your soul consciousness, or need to know more about forgiveness, or need to know more about how to heal something in your life, then if your intention is very serious, you will get the information you need. This is your consciousness. So now it's up to you to go ahead and work with it.